Today I witnessed a young man get rejected by his parents in public for being gay. What's the saddest thing you've witnessed happen to someone else in public? Once on a camping, I saw a little boy running towards me. He yelled something like, "Help, please, somebody help me." He stopped when he saw me. His mother grabbed him shortly after that. When she dragged him away, he whispered something like, "Please don't hit me in my face this time." I told my mom. She said it wasn't a big deal. I lost a part of my childhood that day. A man hitting his wife on a very crowded public street. And I don't mean slapping her. Full-blown swings to the head. Luckily some police officers were walking by. Before anyone asked why I didn't step in, I was 14 and he was a fully grown man. If I saw that crap today, he'd have been pinned to the concrete. And then that's when the wife jumps on you and goes full out trying to defend her man. They both then tell the cops you just assaulted her and you go to jail. I once saw a couple in their 40s or so walk out of a Kmart who were arguing about something. Both were loud, severely obese, smoking, and they appeared to have mental disabilities. They sat down on a bench outside and continued to argue. After a few minutes, this old crippled woman hobbled out of the store with a couple small grocery bags. She looked so weak, moving only a few inches with each step and barely able to lift her head. The couple got up, started walking with her. It became clear that the couple were actually brother and sister, and the old lady was their mother. They kept arguing, saying things like, "I'm tellin' Ma and Ma. She hit me like children." The old woman didn't even have the energy to respond to them. I felt so bad for her. It looked like she'd been raising the same 6-year-olds for the past 40 years, never getting a break. I'm not really sure I can do this justice, but I'll try anyways. A female friend and I were waiting at this bus exchange a couple summers ago, trying to get home from the beach. Basically, our route was sorta out of the way, so we were there for an hour waiting for it. We're sitting against this wall when this guy and this girl walk up to the stop, smiling, holding hands, looking like the perfect high school couple. I remark how nice that is to my friend, and she's like, "No, that girl isn't happy. You can tell by her smile. Something's bugging her." And almost on cue, the girl looks down at her feet and says something really quiet, and the guy immediately zones out into traffic. "Oh." He mumbles something, and they had a good minute of silence. Then she looks at him super sad, and then they had a closure hug, expressing the harsh finality of it, I guess. Then, as they separated, his hand slowly left her arm, and she got on the bus. He turned in our direction, walking down the street, head down, with one of the most pained looks I've seen in my life. Not like open grief that people who have someone in their life die, but the dude looked numb, like an empty husk or something. Meanwhile, the girl turns back as she's boarding the bus, with this expression of regret and sadness, and continues staring at him as the bus drives past him. So after watching this in silent awe, I turned to my friend and said, "Did we just watch a real world movie breakup?" Like 5 minutes later our bus gets there, and as we're driving down the road, we see the same kid again, wiping away tears. I was 8. Me and my family were driving down to Florida. We were on the Mass Turnpike, and everything was extremely boring, just watching the trees and cars go past my window. Then I notice a car has stopped by the side of the road. A man and a woman were outside behind the car. As we got closer, I saw that the woman was on all fours, her head hanging, and the guy was punching and kicking her. The image is still in my mind. I could see her face. I can see her long, tangled hair waving with each blow that the guy gave her. I can see the blood. Woman in her mid-20s is eating with her mother in a restaurant where I'm the server. They have conversation about how the man who raised her isn't her real father and is in fact her stepfather. She had apparently been led to believe that she was always his and that her parents had just had her shortly before their marriage, but she was really from the guy before. I overhear all of this through taking orders from other tables, refilling drinks, etc. They were seated right next to my wait station. Cue the waterworks. Like 30 straight minutes of her bawling her eyes out and asking questions about her real dad. It was pretty rough, and for the life of me I cannot understand why that conversation happened in a public place with a woman in her 20s instead of in a bedroom with a 16-year-old and both parents present. saw a rather large woman in McDonald's sitting in front of a double Big Mac meal and McFlurry. She stared at it for like 5 minutes, then ate it and cried simultaneously. I know obesity is a problem for some, but to others it could be an addiction and they need help. When I was in 9th grade, my school had a talent show. One girl, the quiet, nerdy type, but generally well liked, got up on stage to sing The Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas. She started singing and was actually really good. She started really getting into it, but then she hit a high note and her voice broke. She stopped singing immediately, turned red, and ran off stage. But the audience started cheering for her and eventually she came back on stage and finished the song perfectly. The girl seemed to become more outgoing after that and was quite popular through high school. Thought this thread could use a happy ending. Oh god, thank you. I was really starting to question my sanity for still reading this thread. I once saw a man drag his wife and daughter by their hair and thrash them brutally in full public view. He put a knife to his daughter's throat and threatened to slash her if anyone approached him. The police managed to get him with rubber bullets. It was terrifying and did nothing to raise my confidence in humanity. When I was 14, I was in McDonald's. It wasn't busy, and there was a fat slob of a mother with 3 boys, 7-9 years old-ish. As they finished their food, they asked if they could go play in the ball pit play area, and she said yes. Excited, they got up, and the blonde boy spilled his soda. B flipped on him, made him clean it up while the other kids played, then made him sit at the table while she stuffed her face and yelled at him, "You are so irresponsible. You are such a bad kid. You are lucky you even got McDonald's. You're lucky I'm even taking carry off you. No wonder your parents didn't want you. This is why you don't have a mom and dad. You are so stupid. You are so lucky I don't take you back where you came from, because nobody else in their right mind would foster you." All the while the kid quietly wept and watched his brothers have the time of their lives in the other room. To this day I regret not screaming at her, or at least saying something to the boy, if for nothing else so he wouldn't feel so alone in this world. I still wonder about him from time to time. This actually happened to me the summer before my senior year of high school. I had a tutor coming to my house for a 3-week period because I was taking some AP classes next year and wanted to make sure I wouldn't be lost in class. So it's the second to last day of my tutoring, and as we're on the deck at my house going through problems, I hear my parents arguing. They always had stupid arguments about nonsense, so I didn't think anything of it right away. A few minutes later my mom storms out of the back door in tears saying, "I can't do this anymore." My father, an alcoholic, walks out behind her still carrying the argument and just sounding like an butthole. They continue to yell and be about whatever it was, and finally my mom just leaves. This whole time I am just sitting there, 17 years old, on my way to play college football after my senior year, and I just watched my mom leave my dad, my 4 younger siblings and myself right in front of my tutor. She was an older woman and I could tell she felt absolutely horrible for my siblings, and I wasn't exactly in public, but I was so embarrassed that she had been there to see all of this happen. TLDR. My parents split up while I had a tutor helping me at my house summer prior to senior year. Haven't seen my mom since. Happy Mother's Day. Guy out with his girlfriend bumped into a female friend, gave her a hug. His GF flipped out and dumped him on the spot. The guy looked devastated. His female friend didn't know what to do. I felt really sorry for him, but he's better off without such a B. I was in Vietnam and was already having a pretty horrible day. I had just seen my best friend's $1,000 plus camera get stolen off of his neck by a guy on a Vespa. I was drinking at a bar on the street and I saw a woman on a motorbike accidentally hit a kid while the kid was crossing the street. The woman stopped because she was concerned about if the child was okay. The child's father ran over to the woman and knocked her off of her bike and threw the bike on top of her. After she was pinned on the ground, he started to kick her in the head repeatedly, and other people started to run over and beat her up. While this all happened, a 6-year-old girl came up to me and asked me if I wanted to buy H. This all happened on day 1 of a 3-week backpacking excursion. Pretty awful way to start a vacation. Before my uncle came out to the rest of my family that he was gay, he had written letters to a select few, including myself. We were having a family get together at my grandpa's house. My aunt, being the huge bee she always is and thinking she's better than everyone, decided to talk about how disgusted she was to see a gay couple kiss while at the mall. This lasted about 20 minutes. My uncle had brought his boyfriend along because why not? After she had finished her rant, leaving me furious, my uncle proceeds to lean over and kiss his boyfriend. Not really a sad moment, but I've never seen my aunt look so mortified in her life. And that's what she gets. Stupid bee. My brother brought home a stray dog one day when we were kids, only he didn't tell anyone about it, just tied it up behind the barn. Later he said he forgot about it. I was playing out by the barn one day and heard a whimper. The dog looked desperate and was looking to me for help. When I got over to it, I saw that it had been starved. My mom and I took it into the house and tried to give it water and food, but it was too late. Mom called a vet, who said to bring it in to the office, but it died before we could get it to the car. I started to hate my brother that day. I'll never forget that sight, and I've always felt guilty about it, even though I had no idea the dog was there until an hour before it died. There is a really loud, angry, foul string of words trying to burst out of me, but there are sleeping people nearby. Please tell me where I can find your brother so I can tie him to a barn with no food or water for a few weeks. I was in River Island once shopping for some new jeans. Some overweight girl came out of the changing room wearing a dress as I was waiting and asked her mother how it looked. The response was something like, "You look too fat in that. Maybe we should buy you something baggier for prom." I said I thought she looked beautiful, and her mother looked at me like I'd stabbed her in the back, but at least she got a compliment from one person that day. I once had to sit through an awkward rendition of Piano Man in 8th grade as someone sang it for a talent show by himself in front of the rest of the grade. If you're on here, Josh, you're a good singer. It was just awkward. I am not sure if I heard correctly, but just yesterday I was cycling when I saw this really young boy, around 5 or 6 years old, with tears in its eyes telling his father to "Daddy, please stop drinking." Again, I am not sure I heard correctly. I was in an underwear shop, La Senza, maybe, and just browsing the stuff that was on sale. This girl comes in, starts looking at the medium section. Now she wasn't fat, wasn't overly skinny, in the middle, perfectly nice looking. When she reached out to check the price on a pair, her mum comes wheeling around a corner and starts shouting, "No, no, no. You're too fat. You need an extra large." The girl started trembling and dropped the pair, stepping back and dropping her head so her hair covered her face. Pretty sure she was crying, and the mum ignored her, grabbing a handful of hideous, extra large underwear and shoving it into her hands before marching her to the register, scolding her all the way. I have never wanted to punch a stranger so much. I used to work in the kids department of a bookstore, and a very young mother came in with her son. The son wanted her to read him a book and she couldn't. She was practically illiterate. She could just about manage a few words here and there like cat, the and moon, but apart from that, she was really struggling. It just made me feel really depressed, and it still does whenever I think of it. A group of young male teenagers shouting at a large-sized teenage girl in a bathing suit at the beach, "Hey fatus," stuff like that. So, I walked up to them, I am over 60, and politely looked at the boys and said, "Listen, you little shriveled dongs, if you say one more thing to that young lady, I will personally pluck out all 10 of the pubic hairs you have amongst the lot of you. And I will use a chainsaw to do so. Now get the frick out of here before I do it, and I am a grandma." They looked sullen and walked away, realizing that they did, indeed, have no pubic hair, and probably very little dongs. You get all of my upvotes for the rest of forever, Grandma. Happy Mother's Day. When I was about 6 years old, I went to the grocery store with my mom. While she was paying for our groceries, I went to wait outside. It was a nice sunny summer day. While I was outside, some drunk man came up to me and hit me in the face. As I fell on the ground, he hit me in the face a couple more times with his boot. Nobody stepped in or did anything. I was only 6 years old, but I will never forget the look on my mother's face when I walked into the store with my face covered in blood at only 6 years old. Her face, and a white napkin that turned bright red as I wiped my face. It happened in Russia, and probably because I'm Armenian Jewish myself. TLDR. I love my mom. Happy Mother's Day. I grew up in a western state where raising animals for 4-H is common. Obviously, you end up spending about a week at the state fair before you auction the animals off. My friends and I would get bored, and once we rigged up this giant fake spider that we won on the midway to drop from the rafters of the animal barn. We were probably 13, maybe 14 years old. We dropped it in front of this rather macho looking 30-something guy walking with his girlfriend, and the dude flipped. He screamed like a 13-year-old girl, knocked his hat and Oakleys off his head and nearly crap himself. After he realized that it was fake, the embarrassment set in like an out-of-control train. He started yelling at us and threatening to kill us. His girlfriend was laughing hysterically and complimenting us on our brilliant prank. He then started threatening her. Fortunately, there were plenty of people around, and soon enough the fair security arrived and hauled him off. At first, we felt bad, but then we realized that this guy obviously had anger issues that the girlfriend was unaware of, otherwise I doubt she would have laughed. My guess is she would have been afraid, and we, perhaps, ended up saving her from years of abuse. To this day, I'm proud of my accomplishment. It was the best prank of my life. I like stories with happy endings. D. I actually just got back from a week of working at a camp. A lot of the kids have never spent time away from home, so homesickness is always present in a lot of them. Earlier this week, I saw that a girl was crying, so I approached her with my general homesickness routine, but I wasn't prepared for her story. She was crying because that day was her dad's birthday. Her dad has been in prison in El Salvador for the past 3 years and only gets a chance to call on certain days, including his birthday. She hadn't talked to him in a while, and she was very aware she was missing his call. She was so worried about her dad, and more specifically about her dad not knowing where she was, and wanted to be there to support him more than anything in the world. I heard her out and hugged her. I reassured her that her dad knows she is there for him and that the next phone call will be there before she knows it. She made it through the week, but man, that hit me hard. A couple months ago, I was waiting tables at my job. I had this section which included 3 2-person tables right next to each other in a booth. It's pretty cramped there, and everyone can hear just about everything you say. Halfway through the night, this lady sits at my table and says she's just waiting for her husband. It's all smiles at this point. Then the husband comes in, looking grouchy, but the wife seems completely oblivious to his obvious discomfort. I get their drinks, their orders, and their food. After they're done eating, I go over to ask if she wants a box. They both look pretty grim. The husband says, "The marriage is over. I've been having an affair for a while now, and I just don't love you anymore." While I am at the table, the lady is bawling but trying to hold it in. She manages to ask me to box up her stuff. As I walk away from the table, I look around my section. Every table is turned toward them and is either looking sympathetically at the lady or with daggers at the dude. They left right after that. I sort of understand doing that in a public place if you are afraid there will be a confrontation. But that lady just died inside in front of 100 other people and that guy didn't give one crap. In high school I was eating at a Taco Bell in the ghetto. Basically you had to ask at the counter to be buzzed into the bathroom. Too much vandalism. This poor old gigantic homeless woman with a clubbed foot and a walker was trying to use the bathroom. By the time she would get there, the kid at the front stopped buzzing the door. She had walked back and forth about 3 times to ask, each time loosening more and more of her clothing. She was wearing several layers. Her falling pants lines started to reveal these crazy boobs that were tucked into her pants. She was undressing more and more each time. It seemed to be an emergency. Finally she arched forward a little bit and the pants fell to the ground. Giving up, she peed on the floor of the Taco Bell. Then she started to yell, "I don't give a frick, call the cops," over and over. I've had the fortune of never seeing a soul-crushing incident that someone didn't try to mend, thus restoring my faith in humanity. I have a friend who owned a small game shop. I would spend a lot of time hanging around, playing games and generally bullshitting. One day, a little old lady walked in holding a little boy's hand. He was probably 7 or 8 and he was beaming. He ran around playing on the consoles for a good 45 minutes. My friend and I were chatting behind the counter and she started talking to us about how awesome her grandson is and how proud of him she was. And he was a really sweet kid, very polite, and when some of the other kids in the store wanted to play the games, He stepped aside and was just being generally friendly and agreeable. She told us that his father was never in the picture and that his mother died of something I can't remember, and that she had been raising him since he was 2. She also told us that last weekend was his birthday and she wanted to buy him a new game for the Xbox his uncle gave to him. It was his old one, so he didn't have any games and this was going to be his first. She eventually told him that it was time to go and to find the game he wanted. He knew exactly what he wanted, Lego Star Wars. I showed him where it was and he was ready to go. They went up to the counter and my friend rang them up. He told them the price, and she opened her wallet and a sad look came across her face. She stood there for what seemed like a full minute, almost on the verge of tears, and looked at my friend. "Oh, I don't have enough for that game." Then she turned to her grandson and said, "Sweetie, we need to pick a different game." The disappointed look on the boy's face was heartbreaking. But what came next was even more heartbreaking because without skipping a beat he said, "That's okay grandma, we can just get some ice cream. That would be okay too." That did it for me. My mouth was agape. This child's lack of entitlement was awe-inspiring. His immediate acceptance of it, and his loving tone towards his grandmother just ruined me. I was running through my head trying to find a way to tactfully pay the remainder of the money so the kid could have the game when my friend spoke before I'd finished thinking. "Oh, I forgot. Senior discount. He doesn't have a senior discount." He rang it up again and it conveniently came out as something she could afford. The boy's face lit up and the grandmother, I'm not sure if she realized what had just happened, but I think she had a hunch, thanked my friend and left. When they left, my friend sat down in his chair, stayed silent for about 15 seconds then said, "Frick, man," and we continued our day. I paint on people for a living. When painting kids, little boys will ask for a more feminine design, like a butterfly or princess. Usually, the parents just laugh about it and let them get whatever they want. One time though, a little boy asked for a butterfly face, so I painted it. He was super happy with it. I mean, this kid's face lit up when he looked in the mirror. It was exactly what he wanted, so he ran over to his dad to show off his design. Poor kid. The dad looked right at him, said, "A butterfly? Why did you get that?" "No, my son is not going to be a butterfly, come on." And then took the kid to the bathroom, and when he came out again the dad had washed it all off and the kid had some tears in his eyes. So sad. There's also the time that I've had kids sit down to get painted and they had lice crawling around in their hair, but the parents don't seem to care when I mention it. Or the time that the Nazi parents brought in their kids to get painted. I painted them, but the parents stood there and talked about their new swastika jackets that were arriving in the mail soon. The dad had the word Nazi tattooed on his forehead. Poor kids. So many stories from this job. The dad had the word Nazi tattooed on his forehead. At least we can be grateful that he's taking the guesswork out of it for us. Years ago, long before 9/11, I was at SeaTac Airport waiting on a flight. At the gate across the way a lady was dragging her kid, 6-7ish, to the gate. They were the last ones to board. The kid was screaming at the top of his lungs, "I don't wanna go. I don't wanna go. I don't wanna go." I could hear him screaming all the way down the jetway. About 5 minutes later she comes out of the plane, still with the boy. I assumed the captain booted them off the flight. She was now the one crying and screaming at the kid, "I hate you. I hate you." You feel bad for her, but at the same time it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.